Welcome to a story where truth was meant to destroy, but instead burned everything in its path. This isn't just a family drama. This is what happens when jealousy turns into obsession, when a sister decides to prove a lie at any cost, and when a marriage built on illusion starts cracking under real scrutiny. What began as secret investigations, whispered accusations, and silent judgment slowly uncovered something far darker: hidden accounts, falsified documents, and a husband living a double life no one expected. Every report meant to hurt someone else became a mirror, reflecting betrayals too big to hide. And through it all, there was no screaming, no confrontation, only patience, silence, and the kind of truth that doesn't need defending. If you think revenge always looks loud and explosive, this story will change your mind. Stay with us because some truths don't chase, they wait. The accusation arrived quietly at first, dressed as concern and wrapped in fake smiles. Stories were repeated just loudly enough to be heard, questions asked that already carried answers. Lies were planted with precision, meant to make doubt feel natural. Every gathering turned into a courtroom without a judge, where guilt was assumed and silence treated as confession. That sister didn't want clarity. Control was the goal, and proving superiority mattered more than truth. Obsession followed quickly. What began as gossip turned into spreadsheets, phone logs, and whispered updates from strangers hired to dig through private life. Money flowed freely, justified as necessary to finally prove everything. Every day brought new tension, new looks filled with satisfaction, as if exposure was already guaranteed. Jealousy fuels it all, sharp and relentless, born from years of comparison and resentment that had never fully slept. What went unnoticed was how recklessly wide the net had been cast. Investigators don't stop where emotions want them to. They follow patterns, connections, numbers. The more aggressively the search continued, the more threads appeared, threads leading away from the original target and straight into the sister's own home. Bank transfers surfaced that didn't match income. Late-night calls traced back to a number saved under a fake name. Receipts tied to hotels no business trip could explain. The most devastating discovery came wrapped in cold, professional language. The husband wasn't just unfaithful, he was strategic. Hidden accounts existed under shell names. Assets were being moved quietly, long before suspicion ever entered the family. Conversations revealed plans to let someone else absorb the blame if everything collapsed. Loyalty had been a performance, rehearsed and convincing, while betrayal handled the finances. Watching the sister change was painful and strangely validating. Confidence cracked, control slipped. The same mouth that accused others began searching for excuses. Rage replaced certainty, then panic. The investigators kept working, unmoved by tears or demands, because truth doesn't pause for emotions. Each new detail tightened the trap she never realized was closing. The irony was unbearable. The lie she swore to expose had never existed, but the fraud she lived inside was now undeniable. Every dollar spent to destroy another person had purchased evidence of her own destruction. No confrontation was necessary, no explanation offered. The truth arrived because it was invited. The marriage everyone admired was built on carefully rehearsed moments. Public affection, predictable routines, and polished smiles created the image of devotion. Behind closed doors, loyalty was a performance, not a promise. The husband knew exactly when to reassure, when to distract, and when to disappear behind the excuse of work. Every absence had an explanation ready, every question softened with charm. The illusion survived because silence protected it. Financial matters were kept deliberately confusing, wrapped in jargon and urgency so no one lingered long enough to question details. Statements were skimmed, signatures rushed, documents presented as routine. Trust made everything easier. Trust allowed hidden accounts to exist under false names. Trust made forged paperwork blend seamlessly into everyday life. Trust paid for hotel rooms disguised as conferences and gifts labeled as business expenses. The affair wasn't reckless, it was calculated. Money moved quietly between accounts, always small enough to avoid attention, but frequent enough to fund a second life. Phone calls were timed precisely, deleted immediately after. A woman's name appeared in financial records disguised as a vendor, her presence masked as a transaction. Every betrayal was logged, organized, and protected by planning rather than passion. What made it worse was knowing the deception had allies. The sisters' influence shielded everything. Questions were redirected, doubts dismissed as jealousy. Anyone who got too close to the truth was painted as unstable or dishonest. That manipulation didn't just protect the marriage, it fortified the lies inside it. The husband thrived in that protection, confident nothing would ever surface as long as loyalty within the family remained twisted in his favor. But lies expand. They need maintenance, attention, money. One mistake creates another. A single transfer triggered an audit. One altered document contradicted another. Conversations once erased were recovered elsewhere. The image of devotion began to rot from the inside, exposing desperation where confidence once lived. The husband stopped smiling the same way. Defensiveness replaced charm. Love turned into strategy. The realization didn't arrive as heartbreak, it arrived as clarity. The marriage had never been sacred, it had been useful. Every affectionate gesture was leverage, every promise a cover. What looked like stability was simply deception done neatly and without emotion. By the time the truth could no longer be contained, nothing was left to save. The loyalty everyone believed in had never existed, only the benefits of pretending it did. Some marriages don't fall apart, they are revealed. The evidence was never meant to tell the truth. It was collected with intention, sharpened for damage, and aimed like a weapon. Every receipt, recording, and report was supposed to confirm a narrative already decided. Guilt was assumed. Facts were expected to obey. The people hired to investigate were treated like tools, not realizing tools have a way of slipping from the hand. What arrived instead was a reflection no one was prepared to face. The first report felt harmless, just numbers, timelines, names. But numbers don't lie the way people do. Accounts appeared that didn't match income. Payments looped back into the same circle, dressed as expenses, then reemerged as personal luxuries. The husband's name surfaced repeatedly, attached to transactions never discussed at home. At first, it felt like coincidence. Then, it felt intentional. Recordings followed. Voices lowered, confident, careless. Plans spoken aloud because secrecy had lasted so long it felt permanent. Promises made to another woman using money pulled from shared accounts. Jokes about how easy it was to move funds when everyone trusted the wrong people. Hearing it wasn't painful, it was clarifying. Betrayal sounds different when it's documented. The paper trail grew heavier with each page. Altered documents contradicted one another. Dates overlapped where they shouldn't. Signatures appeared on forms never seen before. The husband wasn't hiding a mistake, he was managing an operation, a second life supported by spreadsheets and lies, protected by the sisters' relentless focus on destroying someone else. Watching the shift was surreal. Confidence drained from the room as questions stopped being hypothetical. The hunters grew defensive. Control slipped through fingers that once pointed so easily. Every demand for silence only amplified the truth already printed in black and white. No one could argue with records stamped, verified, and cross-checked by professionals who had no loyalty to family drama. Revenge didn't require action, it required patience. Letting the truth exist exactly as it was, untouched, undeniable. Every attempt to twist it only revealed more. Every accusation thrown outward came back heavier. The husband's secrets didn't explode loudly, they collapsed inward, pulling everything with them. Trust, reputation, alliances, gone. Not because of confrontation, but because evidence doesn't care who asked for it. In the end, the truth did what it always does when weaponized by the wrong hands. It turned around. Silence was chosen deliberately, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Confrontation gives liars something to fight, something to rewrite. Silence gives them room to expose themselves. While accusations echoed and tempers flared elsewhere, patience became the quiet strategy. No explanations were offered, no defenses raised. Letting others speak revealed far more than any argument ever could. The truth didn't rush. It unfolded through systems that don't respond to emotion. Legal filings appeared first, dry and impersonal, outlining discrepancies no one could charm away. Numbers didn't match stories. Timelines contradicted public narratives. Bank audits followed, each page stripping away another layer of protection. Funds had been moved too often, too carefully. Hidden accounts surfaced under unfamiliar names, all connected back to one familiar signature. The husband unraveled slowly. Confidence faded as paperwork replaced persuasion. Excuses that once worked in private sounded hollow under legal scrutiny. His secrets weren't discovered through confession, but through verification. An affair wasn't exposed by tears, but by expense reports tied to hotels and flights that never aligned with business. Gifts purchased with shared money told a story far louder than any apology ever could. Investigators delivered their final report without drama, just facts, timelines, and conclusions drawn from evidence gathered patiently over time. It detailed falsified documents, intentional misdirection, and calculated financial betrayal. Everything laid out cleanly, professionally, and permanently. Denial tried to rise, but there was nothing left to deny. The truth had already been filed, stamped, and entered into records that couldn't be erased. Reputations don't burn all at once. They erode. Friends grew distant, calls stopped coming. The same people who once defended blindly began asking careful questions. The husband became quieter, smaller somehow, stripped of the confidence that secrecy once provided. Power had come from deception. Exposure left nothing behind. What hurt most wasn't the affair or the money. It was realizing how long the deception had required cooperation. Lies sustained by patience, planning, and the assumption that silence meant ignorance. That assumption became the greatest mistake. Silence wasn't weakness, it was restraint. No celebration followed, no victory speech. Watching truth surface on its own was enough. There was no need to explain pain when evidence explained everything far better. The collapse happened publicly, inevitably, and without a single raised voice. Sometimes the sharpest blade never swings. It waits. If this story kept you hooked, shocked you, or made you rethink how truth really works, don't forget to like this video. It helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Subscribe to the channel for more real, intense family dramas where lies unravel, secrets surface, and silence speaks louder than words. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story where patience becomes power and truth always finds its way out. Thanks for listening. Until the next story, remember, some revenge doesn't scream. It simply survives.